This microscopic piece of volcanic glass just shattered 30 years of human evolution science. Scientists found it buried in Ethiopian soil, proof that humans didn't just survive the largest volcanic eruption in history. They actually got better at being human while the world was ending. Everything we thought we knew about humanity's darkest hour was completely wrong. Let me take you back to that moment in the lab at the University of Texas. Kappelman's team was examining sediment from an archaeological site called Shinfoma Tamar 1 in northwestern Ethiopia. They were looking for crypto-tephrovolcanic glass so small you need advanced chemical fingerprinting to even detect it. Finding these microscopic shards is like searching for a specific needle in a haystack when you don't even know if there's a needle there. But here's why this matters to you. Imagine if you could pinpoint the exact week your great-great-grandmother was born. Except we're talking about events from 74,000 years ago. That's the kind of time travel precision we're dealing with here. When they found the Toba glass, everything clicked into place. The layers of artifacts above and below the volcanic deposit told an incredible story, and I'm about to show you exactly why this discovery is so shocking that it literally rewrote textbooks. Humans weren't just clinging to survival during Earth's most catastrophic volcanic event. They were adapting, innovating, and actually increasing their population. The site showed continuous human occupation before, during, and after Toba's eruption. The same people who were supposedly reduced to barely 1,000 breeding pairs had been living, hunting, and creating sophisticated tools right through the apocalypse. Picture this. You're standing on the shores of what would become Lake Toba. In modern-day Indonesia, the ground beneath your feet starts to rumble. What happens next makes every disaster movie look like a gentle spring rain. The Toba supervolcano explodes with the force of a massive nuclear weapon going off every second for 2 straight weeks. To put that in perspective, if you started watching this video when the eruption began, you'd have to watch it non-stop for 336 hours straight to see it end. It hurls 2,800 cubic kilometers of rock, ash, and debris into the atmosphere. That's enough material to bury the entire state of California under 3 feet of volcanic debris. The volcanic explosivity index only goes up to 8. Toba maxed it out. Mount St. Helens was a 5. Toba was 1,000 times more powerful. If Mount St. Helens was a firecracker, Toba was a hydrogen bomb. And that's not even the scary part. The ash cloud rose 32 kilometers into the sky, 3 times higher than commercial jets fly. But the ash was just the beginning. The eruption pumped massive amounts of sulfur dioxide into the stratosphere, where it formed a globe-spanning cloud that blocked sunlight for months. Temperatures plummeted, the water cycle ground to a halt, plants died, animals starved, and then came the part that nobody saw coming, the invisible killer that makes this story truly terrifying. Recent discoveries have revealed something that makes every other effect of the eruption look trivial. What I'm about to tell you is so terrifying that when NASA scientists first ran these calculations, they had to double-check their results because they couldn't believe what they were seeing. Sergei Osipov's team at King Abdullah University used NASA climate models to figure out what happened to Earth's protective ozone layer during the Toba eruption. The results were horrifying. The volcanic plume didn't just block sunlight, it absorbed the specific ultraviolet radiation needed to create ozone from oxygen. Think of the ozone layer as Earth's natural sunscreen. Now imagine that sunscreen just disappeared completely for over a year. In the tropics, ozone levels dropped by 50%. In some areas, the protective layer was completely destroyed. Imagine stepping outside without any UV protection and getting a severe sunburn in minutes. Crops withered under sterilizing radiation. Marine ecosystems collapsed as UV rays penetrated deep into the ocean. Being in direct sunlight without protection would cause immediate eye damage and skin burns. The radiation levels were so extreme that NASA scientists compared it to the aftermath of a nuclear war. But this wasn't a brief flash. It lasted for over a year, bathing the planet in cancer-causing radiation while temperatures plummeted and ash filled the skies. This was genuinely the worst time to have ever been a human. But here's where the story gets incredible. Remember, those humans who were supposed to be nearly extinct, well, the evidence we found suggests they were doing something that will completely blow your mind. While Earth was experiencing this double catastrophe of nuclear winter and radiation bombardment, humans weren't just surviving, they were getting better at being human. The evidence comes from multiple sites across Africa and Asia, all linked by those microscopic glass fragments that can only be detected in a few laboratories worldwide. At Pinnacle Point in South Africa, archaeologists found that human activity actually increased after the Toba eruption. Let me say that again. While the world was ending, humans got better at being human. In Ethiopia, at the Shinfa site, the story was even more remarkable. When the rivers started drying up from the climate chaos, humans completely changed their diet from land animals to fish. They invented bow and arrow technology during the crisis, creating the oldest evidence of archery in human history. These weren't desperate people barely clinging to life. These were innovators using disaster as an opportunity to develop technologies that would define human success for the next 70,000 years. The most shocking discovery came from analyzing fossilized animal bones and ostrich eggs at the Ethiopian site. The chemical signatures showed that after Toba, the environment became extremely arid, exactly the kind of conditions that should have wiped out human populations. Instead, humans adapted so successfully that they may have actually thrived. This completely overturns one of the most famous theories in human evolution. For 3 decades, scientists had been convinced that the Toba eruption caused a genetic bottleneck that reduced humanity to maybe 1,000 breeding pairs. The theory was based on mitochondrial DNA studies from the 1990s that seemed to show all humans descended from a tiny population that survived a catastrophic event. But in 2023, researchers at the Chinese Academy of Sciences analyzed the complete genomes of over 3,000 people from around the world. What they found was so shocking that it invalidated 3 decades of research in a single paper. What they found demolished the Toba bottleneck theory completely. The real genetic bottleneck happened 930,000 years ago, not 74,000 years ago. That's like discovering that the Titanic actually sank in 1850, not 1912. Everything we thought we knew was wrong. For 117,000 years, human ancestors were reduced to just 1,280 breeding individuals. This was during a massive ice age, before Toba ever erupted. By the time Toba exploded, humans had already survived their actual brush with extinction and had grown into resilient populations. Spread across Africa and Asia, the famous 1,000 breeding pairs statistic that every documentary repeated. It was wrong. Toba didn't nearly wipe out humanity. Humanity had already survived its real near-extinction event nearly 1 million years earlier. And the new evidence is revealing something even more remarkable about how humans responded to Toba. Traditional theories suggested that humans could only migrate during green corridors, humid periods, when vegetation was abundant and food was plentiful. But humans, as usual, decided to completely ignore what should have been possible. The post-Toba evidence shows humans doing the exact opposite. They were using what researchers now call blue highways, seasonal rivers and water sources that became crucial during arid periods. As water holes dried up, people were forced to move from one water source to another, accidentally creating migration. Networks that would eventually lead humans out of Africa and across the globe. The behavioral flexibility that let humans adapt to Toba's aftermaths, switching from hunting to fishing, developing new technologies, exploiting arid environments, was exactly the skill set needed for the great human expansion that followed. Toba didn't merely destroy humanity. It may have given humanity the final training it needed to conquer the world. When you step back and look at the complete picture, the Toba story becomes something completely different from the near extinction tale we've been told. And this isn't just ancient history. This discovery changes how we think about human potential today. It's the ultimate story of human resilience and adaptability. Small groups of humans faced the largest volcanic eruption in 2 million years. They survived months of darkness and cold. They endured over a year of radiation levels that would kill most life forms. They adapted to extreme drought conditions that should have been uninhabitable. And they didn't just survive, they innovated. They developed new hunting technologies. They discovered new food sources. They created migration strategies that would eventually populate the entire planet. The microscopic glass fragments scattered across 3 continents tell a story that's far more inspiring than any extinction narrative. They're evidence that 74,000 years ago, faced with the closest thing to a real-world apocalypse that humans have ever experienced, our ancestors proved that we are the most adaptable species on Earth. The worst time to have ever been a human turned out to be the moment we proved we could survive anything.